8.4 million Americans are working multiple jobs right now. Not for fun, not for fulfillment. Because one paycheck is a fantasy. I have one full-time and one part-time, one worker told reporters. But I need both of them to pay my bills every month, rent and groceries. So I'm just working all the time. This is America's labor market in 2025. None of it makes sense anymore. Companies are hemorrhaging staff through mass layoffs while posting desperate help-wanted ads. Some workers have cracked the code, secretly juggling multiple salaries like a corporate circus act. Others are drowning in unpaid hours at jobs that barely cover rent. And beneath it all, the gig economy is consuming entire professions. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The 8-hour workday was invented by labor unions in the 1800s and went mainstream over a century ago. It was built for assembly lines and factory floors, and it was revolutionary then. But forcing this outdated system onto every modern job has created a disaster that's hurting workers and sabotaging companies alike. McKinsey found something startling in their research. 2/3 of the average person's lifetime wealth comes from their ability to work. Your time, effort, and accumulated skills are worth twice as much as every other asset you'll ever own combined. That makes how we structure work the most important economic question most people will ever face. The traditional 40-hour week succeeded for generations because it offered something valuable: predictability. You traded a defined amount of time for a defined paycheck with defined career progression, a container for ambition, a ladder you could actually climb. But that container was always designed for a specific type of work, and most modern jobs don't fit inside it anymore. Henry Ford pioneered the 8-hour day not out of generosity, but strategy. He wanted to poach the best auto workers from competitors without raising wages. Offering better hours was cheaper than offering better pay. Other car manufacturers had to match his offer or lose their talent. Eventually, companies in completely different industries adopted the same schedule because their workers kept quitting to work on assembly lines instead. The model worked because factory work was consistent. Workers had tightly defined, repetitive tasks. Unless exhaustion broke them, they produced the same output every hour. An extra hour of work meant an extra hour of production, like clockwork. Anyone in a modern office knows their job works nothing like that. Some days you're buried. Other days you're inventing busy work to look occupied. Yet you're still chained to an 8-hour minimum regardless of actual workload. When Ford's workers fought for the 40-hour week, most Americans worked in manufacturing. Today, most work in services, a category so broad it's almost meaningless. Unless you're farming or making physical products, you're technically a service worker. That label covers everything from C-suite strategy to serving lattes. These jobs have nothing in common. They shouldn't have identical schedules, but corporate America kept trying to squeeze them into the same template anyway. Service work doesn't arrive on a production line. It comes in waves, driven by customer demands and project cycles. When work floods in, employees are expected to handle reasonable unpaid overtime. An ADP Research Institute study found office professionals worked an average of 9.2 extra hours per week in 2021, more than an entire additional workday, unpaid, just to meet basic expectations. But when projects wrap up or business slows seasonally, employees still owe the company their 40 hours. You're paid for time, not output. So if there's nothing to do, you manufacture the appearance of productivity, or management invents meaningless tasks to fill the mandatory hours. If this were just another tale of corporate exploitation, it wouldn't be particularly noteworthy. But here's the twist. The 40-hour week isn't even working for companies anymore. Data compiled by Statista from the U.S. Census Bureau and McKinsey Research reveals gig work and freelance positions have grown 500% faster than traditional permanent jobs over the past decade. Food delivery platforms like Uber Eats, DoorDash, Postmates, and Grubhub have become magnets for workers who need flexibility more than security. Someone with a smartphone and a bicycle can start earning within an hour by completing an online form. Compare that to applying to minimum wage jobs, submitting resumes, enduring weeks of interviews, only to get ghosted by a fast food chain offering $7.25 an hour with an unpredictable schedule. Freelancing and private contracting have exploded among skilled workers who can sell expertise like a product. They're paid only when there's actual work. No ongoing employment agreement required. Contracts typically specify a price for a defined outcome, like $10,000 for a website build. though some work hourly for roles needing on-demand availability. Healthcare has seen one of the most dramatic shifts. According to Oliver Wyman's research, nurses, doctors, and hospital support staff are abandoning permanent positions for contract work at accelerating rates. Many already worked unpredictable hours, so contracting costs them little while often paying substantially more. Some nurses specifically chose temporary staffing to reduce hours, prioritizing mental health over traditional career stability. Contractors across all industries typically earn higher hourly rates than permanent employees because companies only pay for hours actually needed. Total costs usually drop even with higher rates. With mass layoffs dominating headlines, workers are learning the hard way that at-will employment offers minimal security anyway. The supposed stability of the 9-to-5 was always partially illusion. Workers at every skill level are discovering they can earn more. Businesses are realizing they can spend less. The rigid 8-hour day is becoming a relic, but not everyone wins in the transition. Businesses are capturing most of the gains, even when paying contractors slightly more per hour. The first casualty is benefits. Becoming a contractor means becoming your own boss, which sounds empowering until you realize you're now responsible for paid time off, continuing education, retirement planning, accounting, and health insurance. Health coverage through an employer is typically far more affordable than individual market plans. For gig workers, this creates a brutal trap. Health insurance premiums for people riding motorized scooters through late-night traffic to deliver burritos are simply unaffordable on delivery driver income. Even skilled contractors who don't carefully manage these expenses often end up with less net income than traditional employees. Your loss becomes their gain. A Forbes survey found small and medium businesses are hiring more contractors because it simplifies accounting and slashes the rising costs of human resources management. It's not just small players either. CNBC reported that contract workers have outnumbered direct employees at Google and other tech giants since 2018, a ratio that only became more skewed during the pandemic. Google already has massive HR and accounting departments, so they're not chasing administrative savings. They're pursuing contract work for two strategic reasons. First, top engineering talent realized they can make more money working discrete projects for multiple companies than accepting a full-time salary from one. Demand during boom times meant companies simply had to pay what these engineers demanded. Highly specialized engineers can command up to $10,000 per hour. Even for Google, paying only for needed hours beats offering multi-million-dollar annual salaries for occasional projects requiring specialized skills. Second, during downturns like now, eliminating contractors doesn't count as layoffs. Companies slash expenses without technically reducing headcount. Large layoffs signal distress to investors and remaining employees, suggesting they should take their money and careers elsewhere. Contractors provide a buffer that lets companies adjust costs without telegraphing weakness. 3 groups benefit from the death of the 9-to-5, but their gains come at the expense of one massive group that statistically includes most people reading this. Entry-level workers accessing gig platforms aren't well paid, but they weren't well paid in minimum wage jobs either. They've gained flexibility to work on their own terms. High-skilled workers transitioning to contract roles can earn substantial money by selling to the highest bidder. They've only lost the illusion of job security that never truly existed anyway. Companies are capitalizing fully by cutting their largest expense category. The losers? Regular workers in the middle occupying roles that can't be gigged but aren't in demand enough for lucrative contracting. The fixed overhead of operating as a contractor, health insurance, business licensing, accounting, and administrative costs only makes financial sense for people earning well above median wages. If you're making $60,000 as a permanent employee, you'd need to charge roughly $80,000 as a contractor to break even. Most businesses won't pay that 33% premium for standard work. New regulations intended to protect workers create additional complications. If a contractor files for unemployment after completing work for a company, they can submit an SS-8 form triggering an IRS audit to determine if that contractor and others should be classified as permanent employees. If the audit determines they should, the company must cover unemployment benefits and extend other benefits to every contractor in the organization. Companies avoid this risk by routing contracts through middleman staffing agencies that handle compliance. According to the American Staffing Association, most contractors now work through these intermediaries. For workers funneled through staffing agencies, it combines all the downsides of permanent employment with none of the benefits of true contracting. The aged care industry exemplifies the worst possibilities of this shift. Contract staffing has become a tool for maximizing returns on a fundamentally broken business model. What killed the 8-hour day wasn't technology or globalization or generational attitudes. It died from being forced to do a job it was never designed for. An assembly line solution applied to a knowledge economy problem. The result is a labor market that's simultaneously experiencing worker shortages, mass unemployment, wage stagnation, and worker exploitation. Contradictions that shouldn't coexist but somehow do. The conversation around work has become tribal. One side insists flexibility and entrepreneurship are liberating workers. The other argues it's stripping away hard-won protections that took generations to build. Both are partially right, which means both are missing something critical. We're not going back to the world that made the 9-to-5 necessary, but we also haven't built the systems that make a post-9-to-5 world safe for most workers. We're suspended between two paradigms, having abandoned one before creating its replacement. Understanding how this happened is the first step to not getting crushed by what comes next. The 9-to-5 is dying. The only question is whether we build something better before it takes the middle class down with it. At Market Media, your opinion matters to us. Have you or someone you transitioned out of a 9-to-5 job? Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video.